It's been over a month since our last episode of Giants Baseball with Ben Kaspick, but a lot is happening and not happening in Giants land. And with Thanksgiving approaching, it's time for a show. Hello and welcome to Giants Baseball with Ben Kaspick. As the name suggests, I am your host, Ben Kaspick. I was the host of Locked On Giants for 6.5 years, and prior to that, I was hosting my own independent Giants podcast called Covecast since 2015, so I've been podcasting about the Giants for over a decade, and we have recently transitioned to this new platform, and I do apologize not in advance, but after the fact here for the lengthy absence. It's been quite a month for me, and I'm currently dealing with an illness, which you're probably going to hear here. So, but there's a lot to get into, and I wanted to get an episode out before the holiday so you can have some content from us, which I feel I definitely owe to you at this point, you loyal listeners. And so anyway, my credentials are that I've written about the Giants for Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs, not about the Giants, about baseball. And then I podcasted about the Giants for over a decade professionally. And so, I should say the first one was personal and then professionally for 6.5 years. And now this one is both professionally and personal. Just so you know, there is going to be a paywall on this podcast. So if you are a paid subscriber, you will need to listen through Substack. That is currently the only way I know how to do this. I'm looking into how to make it like that there's a separate RSS feed that you can subscribe to if you're a paid subscriber. But if you're listening on Apple or Spotify or YouTube or anywhere else, it should cut you off at around halfway through the episode. But if you're a paid subscriber on Substack, if you listen on Substack, they have an app, they have a website, and you just click the play button there, you'll get the full episode. So that is currently the way it's running, and I apologize for any inconvenience with that, but that is, it's otherwise quite complicated to set it up in any other way. So without further delay, let us just jump right into what we're going to get into today. And for me, given that there's so much that's gone on, it looks like the last episode that we put out was on the 18th of October. So we're talking about a month and 8 days, and so that's quite a long time, almost 40 days. So a lot going on, but also a lot not going on in a way. It is like a quiet period in Major League Baseball. Since we last spoke, the playoffs concluded. The Dodgers won a dramatic Game 7 of the World Series. That's obviously not what you want if you're a Giants fan, although I must admit that was a very entertaining baseball game, just objectively. But Dodgers win the World Series, first back-to-back title since the Yankees in 1999 and 2000. So what can you say? The Dodgers spend a lot of money. They have a ton of talent, and they didn't have the best regular season, but they win the World Series, and it's really not that surprising. And so the Giants are once again left after a season in which they missed the playoffs for seemingly every year they miss the playoffs. They only made it once since I started podcasting about the Giants in 2015. They really twice, 2016 and 2021. But both of those appearances resulted in a division series loss. And so it's been a while since the Giants have had playoff success, as you know. So if you're a younger fan, you're to heck with the golden age, 2010, 2012, 2014. If you're a younger fan, that feels like ancient history to you. Even as a fan who was an adult during those years, it feels like a very long time ago. And so the Giants, they have to be expecting more out of themselves. This is not a small market team that just expects to lose on a consistent basis, is what I'm trying to say. They expect to win, and yet they haven't been able to do so. And so the question is, how do they go about their business this offseason and find a way to field a more competitive team in 2026? And so today on the show, I just want to get into basically covering all of the notes that I have without going into too much detail into any of them. And then in subsequent days, like next week and following weeks, I do expect to get more into this on a consistent basis, and we will break down individual topics. But the first order of business, I think, is that the Giants officially hired Tony Vitello as their new manager. It's unprecedented. He's jumping straight from being a college baseball coach to Major League Baseball. It'll be his first professional paycheck of any kind. Like, he didn't work in the minor leagues, he didn't play in the minor leagues even, let alone the major leagues. And so it's unprecedented. That's never happened before. And so that's all kind of old news that happened last month around the time we recorded last. But when I say the inactivity that has stood out has been finalizing the coaching staff. Like, we have yet to get an official tweet from the Giants or like press release from the Giants with their full coaching staff. And this is pretty late in the offseason. It is November 26th, and the Giants don't have an announced coaching staff yet. But we do know a lot. We know that Jayce Tingler, former manager of the San Diego Padres, is going to be on the staff, and it is presumed that he is going to be the bench coach for Tony Vitello, and those two have a long-standing relationship, and that's a guy, with managerial experience. Famously, one thing that stands out, Jayce Tingler, criticized Fernando Tatis Jr. for swinging and homering on a 3-0 pitch in a game in, I think, the COVID-shortened 2020 season. And so then, I saw an interview recently with Eric Hosmer, and he was asked, he was on that Padres team, veteran player, if Jayce Tingler lost the clubhouse, because there was some dramatics with that Padres team. And then, ironically, they moved on from Tingler, and I believe they went straight to Bob Melvin as the antidote to an inexperienced manager. So what's important here, though, is that Jayce Tingler is not going to manage the Giants. He's going to be the bench coach, and he has major league managerial experience, and he has a relationship with Tony Vitello. So I don't really see an issue here, but I don't like that I didn't like at the time, and I don't like now that he criticized his own player publicly, saying we'll talk to him. This is not okay, for swinging at a 3-0 pitch in a Major League Baseball game. I have no problem with that. I don't think Tony Vitello has a problem with that. These days, times have changed. Hopefully, Jayce Tingler has turned that attitude around a little bit. We'll see. Maybe Posey, old school guy, kind of continues to hold that viewpoint. I think it was a blowout at the time, but my opinion is that this is the major leagues, and these guys, Tatis at the time, look, I'm not a big fan of Fernando Tatis Jr., PED suspension, cocky player, but at the time, I don't think he had his big contract yet. And so every stat, that you can put up matters. And so to hit a homer, if they're going to give you a cookie, go ahead and swing. This is Major League Baseball. If you don't want the guy to hit a homer, don't throw a fastball right down the middle in a predictable count. So that was my opinion then. It continues to be my opinion now. I have no idea how Jayce Tingler really feels about that now, but that was weird, and that's kind of my one long-standing memory. And then, I don't think I finished my point. Eric Hosmer said, when asked in a YouTube interview, I forget who the interviewer was, it was some young journalist, that if Tingler lost the clubhouse, as was kind of reported or suspected in San Diego, and Hosmer's answer was kind of vague, but he literally said, I'm not a fan. He said, I'm not a fan of Tingler. And so, but then he also said there was this dynamic that the front office was mingling into what Tingler was trying to do. And so there was this just communication problems. They weren't on the same page. Players, coaching staff, and the front office were all kind of not cohesive. And so I don't anticipate that being a problem here, but Jayce Tingler, it's hard to get too much into it before this has even been officially announced, but it's been widely reported that Tingler will be Vitello's bench coach. So look, a bench coach doesn't have that huge of an influence. I don't think it's a big deal, and it's good to get someone who has a relationship with Vitello and is a former major league manager. So moving on, the other big pieces of news about the coaching staff are that we have a reported hitting coach hire, with Hunter Mense reported to be hired as the Giants hitting coach, according to, I don't know exactly who it was according to, but it is on MLB Trade Rumors where I have this. This was first reported by Mitch Bannon of The Athletic, I believe. And then Andrew Baggerly of The Athletic reported that the Giants were targeting him. And I believe Mitch Bannon would be the Blue Jays beat reporter for The Athletic. That would just be an assumption, actually, because Mense is leaving the Blue Jays staff, where he was promoted to the Major League staff ahead of the 2022 season. And the Blue Jays went to the World Series, obviously, this year, and they had an approach that the Giants found enviable. During Mense's years in that role, the Blue Jays have a 257 average, a 326 on base, 416 slugging, a 109 weighted runs created plus, which was fourth best in the majors over that span. And so, look, a lot of that has to do with who are your players. You have Vladimir Guerrero Jr., there's a lot there, but like, you can't just say it's the hitting coach. However, what's important here is that the 41-year-old Mense played baseball at the University of Missouri at the same time as Tony Vitello. And he was drafted by the Marlins and played in the minor league system for a while, spent some time in independent ball. And then once his playing days were over, he pivoted to coaching, working in the Blue Jays minor league system, and then eventually getting promoted. And so, yeah, I mean, again, once we do not have an official announcement, and so it's hard to get like a reaction from Posey or Vitello or anybody at all, because nobody's commenting on these things because it's not official. But what we do know has been widely reported that Pat Burrell is not going to return to the Major League coaching staff, and he is apparently going to stay with the Giants in a different role, some kind of advisory role. I don't know, some roving instructor. I don't know exactly what it is. Again, we don't have any official anything, but Pat Burrell out as hitting coach of the Giants. I never thought that that was a good fit. I criticized some of the comments that Burrell made publicly early last season when the Giants were struggling. They started out hot, but then they started to cool off. And one of the things Burrell said when he was asked about the Giants cooling off at the plate and struggling at the plate was that his job wasn't really to train hitters. It was to like be their therapist, essentially. And I was like, hello. In the year 2025, the best teams have hitting coaches who are training their hitters to be good hitters, not just counseling them mentally. Like you do have that kind of role on teams, like sports psychologists and all that, but I don't think that should be the primary role of the hitting coach. And so that raised my eyebrows, and it's good to know. I'm not good to know that Burrell's out, but I think it was the right thing that they go in a different direction. Their offense overall on the season, after the good start they had as a team, unsustainable clutch hitting included, they just were not a good offensive team, and a lot of players had pretty down years. Patrick Bailey comes to mind. Some others come to mind. Some players had good years. Rafael Devers struck out a ton after he got here, but I don't know. So a change in direction, kind of getting back more to hopefully modernized hitting instruction as opposed to the role of therapist, and that's your primary motivation or like primary job as hitting coach? No. So Pat Burrell staying with the organization obviously helped them win the World Series in 2010. I don't think they win it without him. So forever grateful for that. But being the primary hitting coach, I think, was a little bit too far, and that is no longer going to be the case. And so moving on, we have another report that the Giants are hiring Justin Meccage as their pitching coach. And this is according to Robert Murray of Fansided. So this one comes with, Robert Murray is not Andy Baggerly. He's not Alex Pavlovich. And so I do wonder a bit about this one as to whether or not Meccage is the actual pitching coach, or if it's assistant pitching coach, or if it's bullpen coach. But Justin Meccage began his coaching career after 7 years at the University of Texas, Pan American, and Arkansas State University. From 2004 to 2010, he headed to the pros and became a minor league pitching coach for Pittsburgh in 2011, moved through multiple levels of the minors before taking over as the minor league pitching coordinator in 2017. And then finally in 2018, he got a big league job as an assistant pitching coach for the Pirates, bullpen coach in 2020 through 2024, and then back down to the minor leagues as the AAA pitching coach for Milwaukee this last season. So that's an interesting little switch up there because Milwaukee is notorious for developing and drafting and mostly developing arms out of nowhere. So the fact that Meccage was chosen as the pitching coach of the top level of the minor leagues for the forward thinking and always good pitching wise Milwaukee Brewers is a good indicator to me. But other than that, I don't really know much about Justin Meccage. And once again, until we get a official release from the Giants, we're not going to get quotes from Vitello or Posey or anybody like that. So notably, JP Martinez, who was the Giants pitching, who's been on the Giants staff, I should say, since 2021, heads away to the Atlanta Braves. And he had hoped to stay, apparently. And so I don't know what exactly went down there, but Martinez, who I thought was pretty highly regarded and talented and spoke at least English and Spanish fluently, but I believe possibly even more languages, but definitely spoke Spanish fluently, which is a big plus, heads to Atlanta to take a lesser job as the bullpen coach after being the Giants pitching coach. Can't remember how many years, but he was on the staff since Gabe Kapler. Well, actually, the year after Kapler came in 2020, JP Martinez joined the staff. I think after the Giants, all those coaches that got criticized that Gabe Kapler hired, by the way, so many of them have way significantly advanced in the sport since that season. And so for all his flaws, Gabe Kapler certainly had a good Rolodex of coaches on his roster. And so all kinds of guys are now managers or bench coaches or top, pitching coaches in Major League Baseball right now. Kai Correa, Andrew Bailey, Ethan Katz. I believe Katz is still the pitching coach for the White Sox. Bailey is pitching coach for the Boston Red Sox. Kai Correa, Donnie Ecker is now bench coach for Craig Albernaz, who is on that staff as well, who's now managing the Orioles. And so just a ton of success and I think Kai Correa is bench coach now for the Mets. It's hard to even keep track, but those guys have all advanced, not all, but largely all advanced to significant roles with other teams. And hardly anyone, if anyone at all, remains from that original staff hired out by Gabe Kapler. So, and Gabe Kapler, for what it's worth, now general manager of the Miami Marlins. He was assistant GM going into last year, and now he is the GM of the Miami Marlins under president of baseball operations, who got a president of baseball operations who got hired away from the, again, always forward thinking and always talented Tampa Bay Rays. And so Gabe Kapler is the second in command there in Miami under someone presumed to be a pretty talented baseball mind doing the heavy lifting for the Miami Marlins. So anyway, that's kind of a little bit of a tangent. But so we've covered Hunter Mense, we've covered Justin Meccage, we've covered, I guess, just those two. This one gets a little interesting in that Frank Anderson, this was reported recently, just 4 days ago. Frank Anderson, coming from the University of Tennessee's coaching staff, according to Baseball America's Jacob Rudner, going to be hired in an unspecified role on the Giants coaching staff. And he's coming from the University of Tennessee, where he was a coach under Tony Vitello. So Anderson had been working as the pitching coach for the Volunteers, where Vitello was the manager, since 2017, and was acting as interim head coach after Vitello left the team to become the Giants' new manager last month. So Frank Anderson is 66 years old, and the duo enjoyed a lot of success in Tennessee. We're kind of cliff noting here from MLB trade rumors, and this will be Anderson's first coaching job in the major leagues. Although he's not so much a stranger to Major League Baseball, his son is Brett Anderson, who pitched 13 Major League seasons from 2008 to 2021. So, to me, I'm wondering if possibly this is getting misreported and maybe Frank Anderson becomes the Giants pitching coach. But regardless, something that was interesting to me in reading this story by MLB Trade Rumors is that Anderson is highly regarded. Let me just read this verbatim. So, from MLB Trade Rumors, they write, like Vitello, Anderson brings a wealth of experience from the collegiate ranks, as Rudner, the person who reported this hire, writes that, quote, Anderson is regarded as one of the premier pitching developers in college baseball, end quote. And then MLB Trade Rumors concludes Anderson has over 4 decades of experience as an assistant and head coach in college ball, including 9 seasons as Oklahoma State's head coach from 2003 to 2012. So that's the kind of background that I like to hear. I don't care that he doesn't have major league experience. As I have talked about when the Giants were closing in on Vitello, the college baseball has like caught up, if not in some cases surpassed the major leagues, it seems, in terms of their coaching abilities and kind of utilizing cutting edge technology to get the most out of their players and get them ready for professional baseball. And Tennessee did as good of a job as any program in the country at doing that. And so to get Vitello and then to get now Frank Anderson, I think those are nice gets for the Giants. And to hear that he was regarded as one of the premier pitching developers in college baseball, and you look at a lot of the arms that came out of Tennessee, and just like they threw hard. That was one of their hallmarks, was that they found guys who threw really hard, including I believe Ben Joyce is the name, and he's one of the premier flamethrowers in Major League Baseball. Yes, Ben Joyce of the Los Angeles Angels was a 2022 third-round pick, 89th overall, and this guy has a 3.12 ERA in 49 Major League innings. Let's see, his average fastball velocity with the Angels is 101.6. That's his average fastball in his Major League career. And he peaked out in 2024 with an average fastball of 102.1. That's his average fastball. So anyway, Ben Joyce, an example of somebody recruited and then developed by Vitello and new Giants coach in some capacity, Frank Anderson. So those are the main ones we have as far as I know. When I mentioned Jayce Tingler as well, but until something comes out that becomes official, we just don't know for sure exactly who's in what role, and we're just still waiting on that. And I'm kind of surprised that this hasn't been finalized yet, but I've heard Vitello, I've heard Posey essentially talking that they do expect this to get wrapped up soon. And of course, it will have to get wrapped up in the not too distant future, as that's just the nature of the calendar. They're going to finalize their staff. But in the meantime, we've got some baseball news today. Dylan Cease, one of the premier free agent pitchers, notable because the Giants have been pretty clear that one of their primary objectives, if not their main objective this offseason, is going to be to acquire pitching. So one of the premier free agent pitchers was Dylan Cease. And today, of all days, the day before Thanksgiving, agreeing to a 7-year, $210 million contract with the Toronto Blue Jays. So it's just noteworthy because it kind of sets